Hello, I'm Larry Johnson. I'm professor at Texas A&M University. I'm in the Department of Veterinary Integrative Biosciences. And today we're going to talk about science and careers in science. Basically, we want to talk about three different things. We want to define science, its usage, its methods, and its fields of study. The second thing we want to do is talk about careers in science and maybe entice you to want to pursue one of those. And then talk about the travels of the scientist, kind of what scientists can do, one of the benefits of being a scientist. Now, what is science? Science is from a Latin word, scientia, meaning knowledge or to know. It is the effort of discover to increase the human understanding of how the physical world works. It's a human understanding, not animal understanding, that's involved here. Other words that we want to consider are the scientia, which is a Latin word, knowledge, and that knowledge is obtained by discover. Through control methods, scientists use observable evidence of natural phenomena to collect informational data and analyze that data to explain how the world works. In other words, they use control methods, observable evidence of how things work. Now, what are the methods of science? Methods include experimentation that simulate the natural events under controlled conditions and through conducting experiments. Knowledge in science is gained through research. So, experiments and research. Let's conduct an experiment right now. Have you ever had a head cold and couldn't breathe through your nose, had to breathe through your mouth? You know how dry your mouth gets? The same thing happens to your nose. It dries out. So every 30 minutes, you breathe out of one side of your nose, and then the next 30 minutes, you breathe out of the other side, so it can rehumidify itself. So let's do an experiment right now. Everybody close one nostril and suck in, and then close the other nostril and suck in, and you'll discover you're breathing out of one side more than the other. Who discovered that? I'm breathing more out of my left side than I am the right side. In 30 minutes, we'll test it again and see if it has switched. Okay, if we do that with enough observations, enough people, we can make predictions about that. How has the word science been used? Well, the word science, as we said before, scientia, is knowledge. It also has been used to mean cut, to separate, discern. He cuts off. I split. And here we can see where two deceased individuals have been cut in half so that you can see what's inside. You can see the skull, the hair on the top. You can see the brain. You can see the nose, the eyes and the mouth area, and muscles inside. So science, to cut or examine, is one of the activities that they have. Here we can see our dogs. We have a dog. This is a head of a dog. And then you can see where we can split the dog open and see his brain inside. We can see his nasal cavity. We can see his tongue. We can see the different components of his trachea, as well as the esophagus going down. So we can examine these things if we cut, we split, we discern these activities. Also, we can see our dog. We have a whole dog that has been cut in half, and we can see the different components inside. We can see the stomach, we can see the heart, we can see the liver. So by dissecting or conducting science, separate, discern, we can see the different components inside, which normally you would not be able to see inside the dog. Okay? So science has the same sort of very broad meaning as philosophy had at that time. Philosophy and science. Okay, science is equal philosophy in some languages. Greek, the word philosophy in Greek meant the love of knowledge. So if science is knowledge and philosophy is a love of knowledge, then they are related. So what do you think PhD behind a scientist's name indicates? Doctor of philosophy. That is, he's a doctor of the love of knowledge, is what that means. So the scientific methods and their uses, what are they? The scientific methods are used to explain nature in a reproducible way. That is, you can reproduce it and others can reproduce it. And from that you can make predictions. So what are some words that are used in science? Well, a model. That's one word used in science. And here we see a model. This is a model of a herniated disc of a backbone of an individual. Here we see another model. This is a model of the heart. Now this is the real heart. So in one sense, this is the real specimen, but in another sense, it's a model too. It could be a model of all the hearts, a mammalian hearts, for example. They have 4 chambers. 1, 2, 3, 4 are the 4 chambers that they have. So a model is one of the things. Another thing scientists use is hypothesis. They hypothesize whether something is, they guess, and maybe an educated guess, and then they test using experimental design to do that. And also they have peer review. It's not good enough to discover something yourself. Others have to confirm that before they will believe it. It also talks about scientific theory, facts, and the law, physical law or the law of nature. And here we can see one of the laws of nature. This has to do with breathing. If you pull down on this diaphragm, this is a bell jar with a glove inside like a lung. This is a diaphragm. If you pull this down, you increase the volume inside there. And that reduces the pressure proportionally, and it sucks in the air. That's why we see the glove expand. That's Boyle's law, one of the laws of physics. There's a law in physics in every breath that you take. Okay, so what are some of the words we want to remember? Scientific method, reproducible way, and from that you can make predictions. And you can hypothesize as to how nature works. Now, despite the existence of well-tested theories, and scientists cannot claim absolute knowledge of nature. You can learn a lot about humans by studying animals. And here we can see a human, and some human-like apes. By comparative anatomy, it looks very similar. However, these similarities alone are not absolute evidence of commonality. Did they come from one another? Did they all come from one source? You can't tell specifically just by the similarities. However, there are some footprints of evolution, and one of those is comparative anatomy that we just spoke of. Another one is fossils, and later on we will see a fossil to help unravel evolution. And then also, another component is the biological macromolecules. And one of those is cytochrome C. Cytochrome C in rice is very similar. It is in tuna. So one's a plant and one is an animal. But being very similar of the same macromolecule makes you think that they actually diverge from a common source. So those are footprints of evolution. Scientists can't study evolution in a macro phase because it takes millions of years to do that. We don't have time to do the experiments. And so therefore we can't have absolute. But nevertheless, there are evidence that makes you think so. What are some of the fields of science? There's 2 major fields of science. One is a natural science, which studies the natural phenomena, including biological life. There's also social sciences, which studies the human behavior and societies. Human, not animal, human behavior and societies. Now these 2, natural science and social sciences, are empirical sciences. That is, they're knowledge-based, and that can be confirmed by observing phenomena and repeating tested experiments. Okay, natural and social sciences also include engineering and health. So our medicine is inside the natural and social sciences as well. Mathematics is sometimes classified as a third group or field of science called formal science. So we have formal science and we have empirical science, and empirical science is divided into a natural science and social sciences. Now, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do when you get to be a working individual? Have you considered a career in science or math? Here we see some dolphins. Which field of science, if you're interested in going into science, would it be empirical or formal science that studies dolphins? Well, it would be natural component of the empirical science that would study dolphins. Even though dolphins have a social activity, social science has to do with humans. How many science careers can you name? Here we see a host of science careers. All these are possible science careers, things that you could do. These are actually just natural sciences, which studies use experiments to test. One is biology, chemistry, physics, earth science. There's a host of sciences that you could, a science field you can go into. So how about astronomy? Astronomy is a study of celestial bodies. Which one is Earth? Here we see the Earth is a blue planet with clouds that are located on the outside. We also have geology. Geology is a study of science of solid matter of the Earth. And we can see some of that. This is a little piece of geology. This is a petrified piece of wood that's is either 15 to 50 million years old. It's this wood. You know, there are state birds, there's state flowers, there's state trees, there's also a state rock. You know what the state rock of Texas is? It's the petrified palm tree. So, geology. How about volcanoes? Volcanoes is a study of volcanoes, the lava and the magma. Now, what's the relationship between geology and astronomy? Well, of course, geology is what happens to an individual planet, and then astronomy is multiple planets. Sometimes things from outer space come and hit the Earth and influence the environment. Maybe that's why the dinosaurs all became extinct. Engineering. How many types of engineering can you define? There's mechanical engineering that has to do with aircraft, robots. There's electrical engineering, electricity, civil engineering that build bridges and things. Environmental engineering has to do with pollution. Industrial engineering has to do with making better products. And chemical engineering is converting of raw materials into useful, valuable forms, like petroleum, alternative fuels. Which type of engineering would use or produce this product? As you see, this is a pyramid. That would be civil engineering. How about setting off the shuttle? What type of engineering would that be? Well, of the ones named here, it would be mechanical engineering. Of course, it would be aerospace engineering as well. Which one would use a pedestal to grind up things? Well, chemical engineering. Okay, agriculture. Agriculture is the production of agricultural goods. And those goods may be crops. And here we see cotton. That's one of the crops that we produce. Also, it may be raising domestic animals, like cattle, for steaks that we eat, all for the human consumption. Now, how does agriculture and engineering relate? Well, there's a lot of engineering in the agricultural products. There's tractors that we use, the machinery that they use, a lot of engineering related to it. Also, horticulture is the art and science of cultivating plants. And here we see some nice tomatoes. Now, what is an example of genetic engineering in horticulture? Well, how about edible vaccines? Instead of taking a shot, you just eat an orange that has the vaccine inside. Later on, we'll talk about vaccines and how they work. Ecology. Ecology is a study of interactions between organisms and their environment. Entomology is a study of insects There's careers in medical field. What are some of them? It could be human physician, could be a pharmacology, could be public health. Maybe you're involved in eradicating a disease like smallpox was eradicated from the earth. Or maybe you're involved in biosecurity or research, maybe a veterinarian. So what's the relationship between bugs and medicine? Here we see an insect on someone's hand. What diseases are spread by insects? Well, two famous ones is malaria and West Nile. How does entomologists contribute to medical field? Well, they try to get rid of bugs, the bad ones, or they maybe use good bugs to get rid of bad bugs, for example, or they may make things to confuse the insects that may be transmitting diseases. Okay, there's lots of, what is the impact of the human-insect interface? Here we see that half of all the people who've ever walked on this earth have died from malaria, and that was transmitted by the little mosquito. Biosecurity. What is biosecurity? So you want to be secure from biological warfare, and that can come from a plane, it can come from insects, it could be on a train, it could be in a mall, it could be in our water, or it could be in our food supply. So we have to guard against all these, and maybe you'd like to have a job related to that. How has biosecurity changed your life? If you've ever ridden on a plane lately, you know there's a lot of security associated with travel to prevent bioterrorism. Now, are humans the only ones that are at risk of bioweapons? No. Here we can see in 2001, in the United Kingdom, 2,000 farms, 8 million animals were destroyed, and $15 million was destroyed because of the hoof and mouth disease. Now the veterinarian, what did they do? Veterinarians do basically three things. They preventative medicine, they diagnose what's wrong, and they treat. Those are the basic things, and they do that. They care for the health of the pets, the livestock, the animals in zoos, the raised horses, laboratory animals they care for. They use these skills to protect the humans against disease that may be carried by animals, zoonotic diseases. They conduct clinical research for humans and animal health, and these could be basic or they could be applied research. Zoonotic diseases, disease that can be spread from humans to animals or vice versa. What are some of these diseases? Well, West Nile, I mentioned, could be spread from mosquito to human. Anthrax is another one. Bird flu, rabies, tuberculosis, brucellosis, salmonella, mad cow disease, hoof and mouth disease. Remember the movie Old Yeller? What was the mother's concern with the disease of Old Yeller? Old Yeller had rabies, and she wanted to terminate his life because he was suffering from the disease. And the second thing was the zoonotic disease component was she wanted to protect her family against them getting rabies from Old Yeller. Remember, Old Yeller got rabies from the wolf that he fought. So she wanted to prevent that. So based on scientific research, what three characteristics do these mammals have in common with these mammals? There's three basic characteristics. One is hair. A horse doesn't have scales, do they? Okay, hair is one thing. Another thing is a mammary gland. We get milk from a cow, right? The other thing is special inner ear bones. That one you might not have known. Here we see that the ear bones of mammals came from reptiles' jaws. If you look at the upper left-hand side, you see the reptile, the early reptile, had 3 bones there. And then at the very bottom below that, you see the jawbone of a mammal is 1 bone. So 2 of those bones were modified to make inner ear bones for the human. And here we can see a fossil. This fossil shows an intermediate step. That is, it's a reptile, it's a mammal-like reptile, and it's developing the lower jaw characteristic of a mammal, but it still has the bones of the reptile. And on this one, it has the bones of the inner ear that matches a mammal, but that bone is still attached to the jawbone, indicating that's where it came from. In early embryo form of modern mammals, in the embryo, it's still the early ear bones can be found attached to the jawbone. So those are two pieces of evidence. One is you have a fossil, and then also you see it again in embryology, that the ear bones of mammals came from reptile jaws. So what about medical research? Well, there's vaccines to produce, there's treatments and cures. The scientists test new vaccines and treatments, they have to. What about vaccines? How are they produced? Well, the first vaccine was created by Edward Jenner in 1796. In the 1700s, smallpox were killing a lot of people in England. But Jenner noted that the milkmaids, the ladies that were exposed to cowpox, which is another form of pox, did not get smallpox. They were immune to smallpox. And so he did an experiment. He inoculated a boy, which happened to be his son, with cowpox, which doesn't affect the humans, it doesn't make them sick, and showed later that if you inject his son with smallpox, he did not establish, it did not infect him. And this established a concept of induced immunity. Okay, animals in research. We have to have animals in research. In order for medical researchers to learn how to treat disease, they have to have a living organism as a model. Animals are physiologically similar to humans and therefore good models for humans. Animals have been used to test vaccines for both humans and animal benefits. One of those is anthrax. They use sheep. For cholera, they use various animals. For rabies, various animals. Remember, old Yeller got rabies. Humans can get rabies. Insulin, they use in a dog. And leprosy, armadillos get leprosy and can be used as a model to study humans. So you can give an armadillo leprosy and then kind of come up with how to cure him, but you would not be able to give a human leprosy to be able to try to cure it. It wouldn't be ethical to do that with a human. Animals in research, virtually every medical achievement in the last century has depended directly or indirectly on the use of animals. You have to have some animals in research to be able to advance it. Teaching. Teaching is a noble, maybe most important science-related career. Good teachers can spark your interest in science, can lay down the groundwork for a good education so you can do good work later on. Without a good education system, the world and our country would not be able to make advances in biology and technology and in science. Government research. Scientists of all kinds work in the government. Why do you think it's important that government has scientists? Here we can see some scientists working on a rocket, coming up with an idea of how to test what makes a rocket go and how it makes it work. Medical doctor. How many types of doctors can you name? What are the medical fields? One, they work with eyes, they work with bones, work with pain in bones, endocrinologists, immunologists, cancer, dermatologists, neurologists, dentistry, and cardiology. Those are some different ones that we can see. So once you've given those, which one would use the eyes? Okay, ophthalmology. Which one would study teeth? Dentistry. Which one would study bones? Okay, orthopedics. What about cardiology? Here you can see the partially blocked of a coronary artery. See where it's very narrow right at that place? This is before you get a stent, and then this is post-stent. A stent is where they go inside, expand the artery, and put a metal piece. And so you see the flow, the lumen, the opening, has been restored by this procedure. So science. Scientists are observant. They're curious. They want to know how the world works. They're creative. They ask questions. They're reasonably smart, and they have stamina. They keep trying because most of science is verification. It is not discovery. It's verification. Remember, I said you had to be repeatable. Not only repeatable by you, but also others, and that takes time. Conduct experiments, draw conclusions. They're female and male college graduates. If you want to be a scientist, you have to be a college graduate. Public servants could be you. You could be a scientist too. So scientists have adventure travel, and I'll tell you in the next slide. The excitement of discovery. You discover something no one else knows. Opportunity for work in industry and government and medicine and universities, or also teaching for public good, is a satisfactory job. Here we see some travels of a scientist. On the left-hand side, you see the Tetons in Montana. On the right side, we see some presidents on the mountain at Mount Rushmore. Then the next line, we see the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., Hawaii, Mount Fuji in Japan, museum in Holland, Waterford Crystal in Ireland. There's Eiffel Tower in Paris, Rio de Janeiro in the middle, and on the far right-hand side, the lower part, is where they give a Nobel Prize. That's where every scientist wants to go. They give a Nobel Prize in one room. The next room is laced with gold, and they dance in the gold room. I've danced in the gold room. You can too. I didn't get a Nobel Prize, but I did go, have been in that building. So science, how important is it that we have scientists like this archaeologists? It's very important that we have. That's how we make discoveries. Okay, what do you enjoy in your daily life that has been a direct result of scientific research? Well, you brush your teeth this morning. That was developed from some scientific research. Would you consider a career in science? So in conclusions, science is exciting and fruitful. Research is how scientific knowledge is gained. Animal research is essential to advance biomedical science. You could become a scientist too and contribute to scientia. Remember, the knowledge. Here we can see that we all will contribute to science someday because we ourselves will be fossils. This is Arlington Cemetery in Washington, D.C. Any questions?